Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, it's the return of PrimeTime at the Parks, where we take a look at some TV sitcoms that shot episodes in the Disney parks. Today we're discussing a double dose of sitcoms, and technically one of them doesn't take place in the parks, but it is on a Disney cruise, so I figured that fit the bill. Today we're rewinding to the year 2004 to discuss the Disney episodes of ABC sitcoms According to Jim and George Lopez. It's all coming your way right after this. Who's Its and What's Its continues to crank out new, magically inspired merchandise for Disney fans in the know, and this time it's their Stroke of Midnight collection. Head on over to whositswhatsits.com to check out the new merch inspired by Cinderella, as well as a new Monsters Inc. inspired collection, and so much more. Plus, you can save 15% off your entire order simply by using code DCTC when checking out. So go ahead and treat yourself. You can find the link in this episode's description, and don't forget to use code DCTC to save 15%.
Don't touch that remote, because you're tuned into PrimeTime at the Parks.
Folks, you have spoken and I have listened. You said, "We love hearing you and Kyle Burbank chat about Disney. Let him out of that House of Mouse headlines box you have him trapped in like the prisoners at the end of Pirates of the Caribbean. Go up to that dog, remove those keys from his mouth, and unlock the chamber." So that's what I'm doing today. Welcome, Kyle, to the latest edition of PrimeTime at the Parks. How'd you like that intro?
That was fantastic. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Today we are back with Primetime at the Parks. It's been a while since I've done one of these. If you don't know what Primetime's at the Parks is, it's simply looking at those sitcom TV shows that, did an episode at a Disney park. And today we're actually doing two for the price of one. And it's actually 3 episodes because one of the shows is 2 episodes long.
For some reason.
What are you saying? It didn't need to be 2 episodes long?
We'll get there.
Okay, cool. So let's start with According to Jim. According to Jim was an ABC sitcom starring Jim Belushi. It ran on ABC from 2001 to 2009. There are 2 episodes of this series we'll be taking a look at today. They are episodes 18 and 19 from season 3, called When You Wish to Be a Star, parts 1 and 2. They are originally aired on February 24th, 2004 and March 2nd, 2004. You can watch According to Jim on Apple TV, Amazon, and various other places. Kyle, shall we just start with a brief synopsis of what went on, how they got to... This is actually not a Disney park, this is a Disney cruise, which I thought was kind of unique. We haven't seen this yet, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this one is that, as you mentioned, it was not even just a 2-part episode, but one that aired over the course of 2 weeks, which I feel is unique for these, right? Or was the middle also that way?
What do you mean? Was there a gap week in between? I didn't look.
Well, didn't you say one was in February and one was in March?
Yeah, but that's just a week in between. So
right, but I would think that if you're going to do a 2-part episode, it'd be a 1-hour.
Oh
special,
no, it's very normal to do a to be continued cliffhanger. I mean, these are probably
in general, but for a Disney episode.
I think so. I could be wrong, but I don't think that that's uncommon.
I didn't think this one was necessary, as I kind of alluded to. This felt like it could have been 1 episode because they make the same joke for 20 of the 40 minutes. So
so here's the thing about I'll preface this about both that we're watching today. I remember these shows being on television. I didn't watch either of them, but I do remember them both being on TV. So in my mind, I'm like, they're not that old. And then I look, I'm like, oh, these shows are like almost 20 years ago. So frankly, they're old and I'm old. And the thing that's so crazy is just how different times are. I'm not the type of person that gets offended by stuff very easily, but I'm always kind of shocked when I look back, and just kind of the homophobia in this one was it was a lot for me. What did you get that, or was that just me?
It wasn't just you. There's a lot of things about this episode, or these 2 episodes in particular, that, I mean, even then maybe just weren't it felt half-baked for sure. And that when there's not a whole lot of creativity going on, then you end up stooping to lows.
Yeah, indeed. So give a quick synopsis of what happens in this episode, how they end up on the cruise.
Sure. So Jim's sister-in-law gets a job at a commercial talent agency. It seems like hiring people to be in commercials. And her boss sees her sister, who's Jim's wife, and says, oh, she's perfect for this commercial. Let's get her on this Disney Cruise Line thing. And so then they're like, well, you get a free vacation. So bring the kids. Let's go. So then they get on the ship, and the casting director decides she's not a big fan of Jim. She's not alone. And then they recast Jim and cast a different husband. And that leads Jim to be upset because someone else is going to be kissing his wife at the end of this commercial when they get to Castaway Cay.
Indeed. That was a beautiful synopsis. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one of the things at first, not knowing this show, I was like, okay, does this make sense? Because at the beginning of the episode, we learn that the sister-in-law has been unemployed for quite some time. And all of a sudden, she gets like a really nice marketing job. And so my first question was, is this just a plot point simply to make this Disney story work for this episode? And I did a quick Google, and it did say that she, according to Google, this character does work in advertising throughout the series. I don't know if this moment was the launch of that maybe for her, but regardless, it wasn't just like a one episode thing. So I applaud them on that. That works for me. Like so many of these shows, it doesn't start in the Disney's parks. They are at home, indeed. One thing, do you ever notice how much like Disney stuff they fit into these episodes when they know they're going to a Disney location? Did you catch the Buzz Lightyear binder at the beginning when they were in the kitchen?
Yes, definitely.
I was like, that's totally random. They're sitting around eating breakfast, and all of a sudden there's a Buzz Lightyear binder. I did love the moment. It has nothing to do with Disney, but the toy in the cereal box moment. Do you remember doing this as a kid? Like literally sticking your entire arm in the box, trying to get the toy at the bottom?
I think I might have been more patient, but yeah, I've definitely, if I didn't do it, I thought about it.
I definitely did it. And even more fun for me, I loved it when they would work some sort of craft into the actual box, the cereal box. One of my favorites, I'll never forget this, was you could turn like one of the Fruity Pebbles or Cocoa Pebbles cereal boxes into like the Flintstones car. And I loved that so much, and I definitely made it, and they should bring that back. Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't really buy cereal like that anymore.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm not sure. But do you remember mailing off UPCs to redeem for something?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Absolutely. I would collect those things and send them off. And yeah, that's fun stuff as a kid. I don't know how much of that exists anymore. I feel like whatever they do have, it's probably like a digital prize of sorts. But yeah, sticking your hand in that box and getting the prize is awesome. And it's always, of course, at the bottom of the box. So in any case, there's a nice little tangent for you. So as you mentioned, she is working for Disney Cruise Line marketing. She's looking to cast this commercial. One thing that happens that I find interesting is, so the mom, they love the mom. They don't, one thing that is just ridiculous and stupid is her boss doesn't see Jim until they're on the ship and already started recording. And that's when she's like, oh, no, not him. I'm like, okay, let's just take a moment and say, in reality, he would have been seen and cast beforehand as well. So that isn't a real issue that would happen.
Right. And that scene that you're talking about, the thing that I thought was weird about that, and I don't know if this will mean anything to you, did you think anything of the choice about using shout for that scene?
Okay, so you're talking about the first scene where we see them on the ship, and it's like the welcome party on the deck. This was almost a trivia question that I had for you, because when I thought of Shout, I thought of Blues Brothers, which of course is John Belushi, Jim's brother, or the late John Belushi, but I don't think it is Blues Brothers. It's Animal House, which is also John Belushi. So I did get that, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So I don't know if it was done on, I don't know if that's part of a normal welcome show on a cruise ship. It could be. I feel like Shout's used a lot.
That's a good point. Like, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it just made me be like, oh yeah, you're the other Belushi. Not something you want to bring attention to.
I think he's kind of had that. It sounds like you just don't like Jim Belushi as an actor. You have an issue with Jim
I don't
Belushi?
think anyone, I mean, I've never watched this show. I just always hear, like, he's definitely a punchline. And I feel bad about that to a certain degree because a lot of the people that I've grown up with that were punchlines are actually some of my favorite people. Like, I think of, like, Dolly Parton and Joan Rivers. So I feel bad for Jim Belushi, but watching this episode did not bring out a difference of opinion.
Yeah, this was not a great sitcom from the 2 episodes I watched. But you know what I really love Jim Belushi in? Have you ever seen a movie called Curly Sue?
I've seen the VHS cover. It's burned into my mind. I can see it right now. So
yeah, I think it was like a 90s kind of version of Annie with, that wasn't a musical, but it starred Jim Belushi. And I really liked that movie growing up. So it's kind of the first thing I think of when I think of Jim Belushi. And having enjoyed that movie, I don't have these feelings toward him that you do, but I did not love this show. But one thing that I want to say is, they go on the ship. It's the parents and 2 of the 3 kids. Now, the 3rd kid is, a toddler. And they're like, I guess, the story goes that he wasn't invited to be part of this, the toddler. So they're like, that's okay. We'll leave him with whomever and they'll watch him. Do you know of anybody, or have you ever been in an experience where you were left behind or someone was left behind from a vacation because of their age? Because I kind of hear of this, and I think that this is like the cruelest thing that you can do. In fact, there's a joke about it where it's like, yeah, and when he sees pictures when he grows up, we'll just tell him he wasn't born yet. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrible.
I never heard of that. And also this confused me. It took me a while into the show because I must have missed that part of it. Because there's a joke at the very beginning that opens this first episode that has nothing to do with the rest of it, where he gets the wrong kid from the park, it seems.
Yes.
And so I forgot. I was like, wait a minute, what did that have to do with anything? And then I realized, they must have left one of the kids behind because there was supposed to be a kid named Kyle.
That's right. So, yeah, so I thought that was weird. I can't think of anybody specific, but I feel like I've heard of people doing that. We're like, they're just too young. They, it would be problematic to have them, or they just wouldn't appreciate it, or whatever the reason. I'm just
it kind of makes sense, but
I mean, I get the idea behind it. I would, if I were a parent, I don't think I could do that to my child. And if I were the child and never found out, there would be hell to pay. I would be like, oh, guess what? You're sending me on a trip alone, and none of y'all are welcome. I don't know. Something would have to happen. Not okay. So anybody listening who does that with their children, feel free to write in and yell at me. And I'd actually be really curious to know if anybody listening has done that. Call the hotline and let me know. So, yes, as we mentioned, they are on the Disney Magic cruise ship. Now, the Magic opened in 1999, and the Wonder opened in 1998, rather, for the Magic, and 1999 for the Wonder. So, in 2004, it could have been either of the 2 ships. I found it a little interesting that they chose the Magic, just because they tend to always go with, like, the newer, shinier thing. Not that there was much of an age difference between the 2, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know where the itineraries were going at that time. It could be something like that. Maybe the newer ship was on the other coast, or just doing a non-Bahamian itinerary.
Good point. Didn't even think of that. Of course, years later, the Disney Dream came along in 2011 and the Disney Fantasy in 2012. So those were long off. And what do we got now? The Disney Wish coming out in what?
Yep, that's the next one. Yeah, next summer, hopefully. And then after that, there's 2 more, but they don't have names yet.
That's right. There's 2 more. Okay, let's go on a cruise tangent for a second, because listen, the Disney cruise ships have such a unique, I love the look to them. These old classic, ocean liners, but I'm a little surprised at this point we don't have a Star Wars dedicated ship and a Marvel dedicated ship. And do you think that would ever happen? I know it's very niche, but it's also like, it's a huge amount of people that love those. I guess you'd have to check a Venn diagram to see if those 2 things, converge with cruising.
Yeah, I think it'd be a little bit of a stretch, but I think there is a way to do it, particularly with Marvel, because I'm thinking about the Hotel New York, Art of Marvel, and the way they're kind of blending, Marvel, but obviously a more like classy version of it. I think they could get away with something like that, honestly, for maybe half the ship. I think there'd be a lot of parts that aren't 100% themed to Marvel. naming it would be interesting. Was it going to be the Disney Stan?
I think the Disney Force would be a really cool name for a ship if you were going to do a Star Wars ship. And I don't know, the Disney
Hero.
Sure, that works. The Disney Hero. I like that. The Disney Hero. Listen, if they were going to do it, I'd be like, fully commit. I want it to look entirely differently from the other Disney Cruise Line ships, which I know like in a lineup wouldn't look great. But can you imagine a foghorn that plays the Imperial March? Like, that would be amazing.
And then they can have another ship themed to 20th century, and they can call it the Titanic.
No. Is that guy still building Titanic too? Because I am all for that. And I'll tell you what, I would 100% take that cruise, just not the maiden voyage.
And not in third class.
Not in third class, that's for sure. Yeah, no, I've always honestly, like, if I were a billionaire, I would 100% recreate the Titanic and just dock it like they do the Queen Mary and do it as a hotel. I think that would be really cool. In fact, what's the ship that's in Tokyo Disneysea? What is that, a recreation of anything in particular?
I am not sure. I've been on it, just kind of walked through it while it was raining, and I don't really know.
It's just a walkthrough display, or what is the purpose?
There's a restaurant there, I think.
Okay.
I don't know if it's actually big enough to be a real thing. I think it'd be to scale, but okay. I don't know. I've only really walked past it. I've only gone in it once. And like I said, that was because it was raining. And so I wanted something to cover me.
Stay dry. So, when I watch these sitcoms, I love to see things that I'm like, oh, well, that would not really actually happen. Like the casting thing we were talking about with the dad, although I'm talking more Disney specifically. And I got to be honest, I didn't see a ton of that in this, but there was a moment that I was like, it kind of feels like, oh, this is just for the show. And I'm talking about the welcome aboard of when the characters are coming on the ship and they've got, the person working with the microphone who's like, welcome aboard to Jim's family or whatever their last name is. And like, they actually do that, don't they? It's been so long since I've taken a cruise, but
I've never taken a cruise. Not a Disney cruise. I've never taken a cruise. So
I've only taken one, and it was the Disney, I want to say it was the Magic. I can't remember. It was like early on. It might have even been 98. But yeah, they do that. I've seen video of this for certain where they welcome the families on, like this big announcement, welcome the DePauli family. And it's just, so like, it felt like something that should have been just for the show, but wasn't. It was completely legit, which I thought was really cool. But speaking of Titanic, there was a Titanic joke here. Of course, in the grand entryway of these ships, they all have different statued characters, and in the Magic it's Mickey, and there's the statue of Mickey there, and one of the characters gets up on it and does the whole I'm the king of the world thing from Titanic. And first of all, I was like, oh my gosh, what year was this? And I was like, Titanic was 97. This episode was 2004. 2004. I'm like, holy moly, 7 years later, we're still making Titanic references.
And not even in the correct location.
That's
you're
true.
Indoors. You're not even on the bow anymore.
That is true. And I love this moment where the cast member comes over and is like, it says do not climb. And then he goes, have a magical day. I was like, that's totally how they would do it in a Disney park or on a Disney cruise. So I thought that was kind of funny. So the welcome aboard party we kind of talked about, they've had multiple versions of these. They have the sailing a wave deck party, the sailing away deck party. There's always some sort of celebration on the ship. So once again, something that could have felt like, this is just for the show, really isn't. They do these sorts of things. The one thing that I thought was a little bit laughable was the room that they were staying in, because I was like, okay, that is definitely a set, because these rooms are definitely not this big.
I was thinking that. I was like, there might be a stateroom that's that large on the ship, but not the one that you're going to get.
Yeah.
And then the other way you can know it's a set, and something that's very apparent to me in both of these episodes as well as the George Lopez one, is when they make that switch from multicam to single cam. And because that's a set, so you get the multicam look for that, but as soon as they get out to like the locations, then you get that single cam look. It's probably not noticeable to most people, but I definitely can tell the difference.
Yeah, so I thought that was funny just because I remember, like I said, it's the only cruise I ever took was the Disney cruise, and listen, Disney does it better than the others, I'm sure, but I just remember being like, oh, like this is not like a hotel room, a cruise, room,
maybe
in a
Japanese hotel room.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Or New York City. It's kind of crazy. One thing that I thought was really funny and weird, but they're on location shooting this commercial. And so, there were people crowding around watching them shoot this because that's exciting to watch stuff be shot. And so they have like the yellow caution tape up to keep people away. Did you notice what the caution tape said?
Crime scene.
Crime scene, do not cross. And I was like, what? I guarantee this was simply like somebody on production being like, we need yellow tape. We need something to like keep these crowds back to make this look believable. Props, somebody in props, go get some yellow tape or something as a barrier. And like all that they had was this crime scene tape. That's either that or somebody royally screwed up.
It was so weird. But speaking of production, one of the things I thought was kind of funny was that this is actually a fairly good representation of how PAs feel, where he has to act like he's in charge and keep the people quiet, but then immediately has to go do something demeaning like get coffee. I was like, okay, yeah. Although he didn't have a walkie with his earpiece and stuff. And also, I guess I didn't realize for the entire time that he was like a normal part of the show. I thought he was just a PA character for this episode. So...
Oh no, he's like a regular. I think that it's one of their brothers. It's one's brother and the other brother-in-law.
I didn't get that. I seriously just thought that he was for this episode because he seemed like he was with the production and not with them per se.
Yeah. So at the, when they're shooting that episode, that's when we find out that she is going to need to kiss this man who's acting as her husband in the commercial, and problems ensue, but that cuts the end of the first episode. We head into the second episode, unless there's anything else you wanted to add about the first, Kyle.
No, I think we're good. What was the fake husband's name?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone's name either except for Kyle and Jim.
Yeah, I don't remember his name at all, but he looked really familiar. It was kind of funny. I was like, he looks very familiar to me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. But in any case, we go to the second episode. There's this restaurant that I kept trying to figure out. Maybe you'll know. Was this on the ship, or do you think this was a set? I didn't recognize it, but like a restaurant would be huge on the ship, so they could have shot in it.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't pay a ton of attention. And that actually brings up something I wanted to talk about, is that neither of these episodes really shows that much of the ship. Like, they're at Key West for the one shot, and they go to Castaway Key, but otherwise, like, even the stuff on the ship feels very generic.
Yeah, not only generic, but also kind of tight shots, not a ton of wide shots showing it. That's one of the points with these sitcoms. I always wonder, I'm like, does it feel like a commercial? I mean, ironically, they're shooting a commercial for the Disney cruise, but it didn't feel like a commercial to me that much. I mean, it inherently is just because of the situation, but it didn't feel like they were jamming anything down my throat.
Right.
So this is the episode where I believe, is this where we see the guys, basically there's this silly situation where the brother or brother-in-law is trying to be like, listen, she's just kissing another guy, it's fine. And he like goes in to kiss him, and he does that thing where like puts the hand over the mouth so they're not even kissing, and it becomes this whole like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this reaction from Jim. And it just, I don't know, it just felt so wrong to me. It was so crazy and cringy.
Yeah, I think that was when they were in Key West.
It happened there, and then it happened once at a bar as well. Again.
Yeah, so I guess they cast Jim as like a bartender when he's just supposed to be like an extra, basically, like walk up, give them their drinks. And of course, he's doing all these stupid routines and stuff and gets fired a second time. It was pretty stupid.
Yeah, it was a weird shtick. It was very... I mean, it was this. How many years did the show run? Like 9 years, I think I said. It was 2001 to 2009, so 8 years.
But that was like another scene that was just filler, and I felt like from this point, for this entire second episode, it's just the same thing over and over, where he's upset that they're gonna kiss, and then they go to hang out somewhere alone, and the other guy shows up, just over and over, and there was no variety to it.
I didn't really think about that until you said it, but you're right. This could have easily been one episode. I feel like, because it is a lot of repeat of the same thing. In fact, to the point that my notes for the second episode is mostly just things that were mentioned, and I was like, is that real or not? At one point, he says something about a Mexicalifragilistic party, and I was like, is that a thing? So I Googled it.
Probably not anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything about a Mexicalifragilistic party, and like you said, it probably wouldn't be anymore.
Well, what I thought was funny is that they bring up kids and adults, and as soon as the kids get on stage, they send them away. I was like, well, what was the point of that?
Yeah, it's, oh man, some weird choices. But they did say, they were talking to the kids, and they're trying to, tell them to go do some stuff. And they're like, it says they're making flubber in the Oceaneers Club. And I was like, wait a second. I know the Oceaneers Club is a real thing. I'm like, do they actually make flubber in there? And I checked, and you could indeed make flubber at the Oceaneers Club. That's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool, actually.
Why aren't they selling flubber kits? You know how kids are making slime these days? Everybody's all about making slime. We need some flubber kits.
That's actually a good point. That is an example of something that they actually pointed out on the ship, whereas I just said that everything's generic. So at least they got one.
They got one. This whole flubber thing got me thinking, how they sell science or chemistry sets?
Oh, yeah, especially now with Nat Geo. Disney sells a lot of them, too.
Okay, why is there not a Wayne Szalinski chemistry set?
Because you're not in charge, Jeff.
I honestly think that should be a thing. I honestly want to buy a chemistry set and just design a box to put around it. And
well, maybe when Shrunk comes out, maybe that'll be their chance. They could be partnering with Nat Geo, too. There's so many synergy opportunities.
They missed out on that, and they missed out on Shrinky Dinks. Do you remember Shrinky Dinks?
Of course I remember Shrinky Dinks. Yeah, you cut the things out, you put it in the oven, and they shrink. Why did we like those?
I've done it twice this past year, actually, because I really thought shrinking, for those listening, it's like Kyle said, it was this special paper that it would come with character designs on it, and you'd color it in, and then you put that in the oven, and you would watch them shrink down to an eighth of the size, and it would be a hard plastic, and there'd be little collectible things or charm bracelets could be made out of them or whatever, put them on a necklace. And I just thought of them again this past year, and I've been talking about them to some people I know, and twice people have given me some Shrinky Dink things. I had some Thanksgiving Shrinky Dinks, and then I forget what kind my brother had. He had some as well that he gave to me, and I definitely did them. And I was like, yeah, there should have been Shrinky Dink toys for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah. Okay, now you made me kind of want some. I also remember somewhat related for Christmas one year, we got these ornaments that it was kind of a metal stencil, and you'd pour sand into the different things and make stained glass.
Yeah,
That's
it wasn't
cool.
Sand. It was hard, little tiny pieces of plastic, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picturing it as sand, but that's probably wrong.
Yeah, I loved those as a kid. I did a lot of those as a kid. I wonder if those still exist. But yeah, the little, oh gosh, I remember getting tweezers because there'd be the little sections that, they'd fall into and you can't fit your finger into. Oh, I loved those things. Oh man, now I want those. I got you wanting Shrinky Dinks, and you got me wanting those stained glass things. Oh, I gotta. All right,
well, this Christmas we're gonna share gifts.
I'll tell you what, eBay is great for this stuff. Another thing, oh my god, this is such a tangent, but another thing that I was remembering, and so I checked eBay, but they're often very expensive. Do you remember sticker books as a kid? A lot of franchises. It was from a company called Diamond sticker books, I think. And you'd get this book, and inside it would basically have all these different squares with these different numbers, and you'd have to buy packs of stickers like trading cards essentially, and try and fill out the book. And I was looking on eBay recently, they have some Alf ones, they have some New Kids on the Block animated series ones, and they sell for hundreds of dollars.
Jeez.
And I was holy moly, they had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I didn't see too many Disney ones, but made me want them. Anyway, toy tangent over. In addition to the flubber, he does mention goofy calisthenics by the poolside, and I googled that to see if that was a thing. I couldn't find anything, but I also wouldn't be surprised if that was a thing.
That sounds legit.
Yeah. And we do end up at Castaway Cay, as you said, and we see a little bit of it there. Not a ton, but we see them shooting a bit of the commercial there. When I went on the cruise, we did go to Castaway Cay, which was pretty cool. And that was pretty much the end. At the end of the episode, we do hear that epic, iconic foghorn playing When You Wish Upon a Star, which I absolutely love. I think that's so cool. And that was basically according to Jim on the Disney cruise. Didn't feel super overly commercial to me, and there was nothing that felt super unrealistic Disney-wise, outside of like the reality of the sitcom. Nothing felt out of place.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, like I kind of said, I could have used more commercial elements. I think what would have been a better storyline is once Jim got fired, if he was like, awesome, you guys go do the work, I'm going to go play. And then they kind of highlighted some of the amenities of the ship that he's taking advantage of. I think that would have been a way better use of his character's time.
Yeah, and the promotion of the cruise. Yeah, I completely agree. Totally. But, it's pretty sweet if you're getting paid to be on a cruise ship. I understand they were working and having to, in real life and in the show, they were working and, having to be working on the ship, but it's a pretty nice gig. I like it. Shall we move on to George Lopez?
Let's do it.
All right, now George Lopez was an ABC sitcom starring George Lopez. It ran on ABC from 2002 to 2007. The episode we're talking about today is episode 24 from season 3, and it wasn't the final episode of the season, so I don't know why this season got so many episodes, because 22 is a typical sitcom season, and that's like, from way back in the day.
Yeah, I think this was like 28 or 29 or something like that for some reason.
Yeah, really long season. The episode's called George Goes to Disneyland. It originally aired on April 30th, 2004. So this episode of DCTC is being released exactly 17 years and 2 days before this episode originally aired, by coincidence. And that also means that it aired exactly 17 years before Disneyland's grand reopening. And it also means that this episode aired just 2 months after the previously discussed According to Jim episodes, so ABC was on a Disney synergy whirlwind in 2004.
And this one was intense.
This one was intense. You can watch George Lopez on Apple TV, Amazon, Peacock, and various other places. What do you mean it was intense, Kyle?
Well, so the conceit of this episode that they announced to camera in the beginning of the episode is that it's also a contest where there's between 50 and 150 hidden Mickeys and not so hidden Mickeys throughout the episode. And then you're supposed to count them all and send them in. You could win a trip to Disneyland. And yeah, 150 sounds like a lot. Every single shot, almost. There are a couple of shots where I'm like, oh, I don't see one in this. But over the top. Some of them were fun. Other ones were just incredibly obvious and annoying and distracting.
It's funny, when I was watching, where I was watching it, I didn't get the precursor of this was a contest. And so I just noticed, like, immediately when we're on the set of the sitcom, not in Disneyland yet, there were hidden Mickeys everywhere. And here's the thing, like, they were kind of lame hidden Mickeys. They were just giant stickers stuck on filing cabinets and walls and desks.
A lot of them were, but there were some really good ones, especially in that first scene you're talking about, like back in the warehouse.
Frame.
There's a couple of fun ones. And the picture frame one's good. And even the fan, I'd give like half credit.
Yeah, so it was weird, but yes, there are literally hidden Mickeys everywhere. And once they get to Disneyland, there are even more Mickeys than normal. Like once again, these kind of tacky stickers were just stuck on random things in the park where they normally wouldn't be. So that was interesting. But fun story about the George Lopez set is this is a show that when I first moved to LA was shooting at Warner Brothers when I was a tour guide there. And this is one of the sets that we would always get to go into and show the guests around. And I believe this was stage 4 at Warner Brothers, if I'm remembering correctly. So although I've never seen this show before now, I am very familiar with this set. So it was actually kind of fun to watch it for that.
That is fun. Did you want me to recap this episode?
Yeah. Tell us what goes on here.
So, in addition to having this contest where you're going to see hidden Mickeys throughout, basically, George's son gets awarded most improved in his special ed class, and so they just say, "Okay, well, we're going to celebrate. Where do you want to go?" And of course, they're in Southern California. He says, "I want to go to Disneyland," and George tries to get out of it, but then feels bad when the family goes without him. So he goes, and we find out that the reason he didn't want to go is because his mother never took him to Disneyland before. And so he kind of has bad feelings about that. But then, of course, he goes and loves it. And that's pretty much the crux of it, except for this creepy bee story that we're going to have to get into.
Okay, well, before we get there, I do want to say in that opening scene, there are a couple things that are questionable to me. First of all, you know what's so interesting is sitcoms, these family sitcoms that in general are meant to be, seen by the entire family. There is so much sex talk on sitcoms. It kind of blows my mind. Like one of the first things we see is George Lopez making a comment about like his young son's, possible erection. And I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is a family show. I don't know. Looking back on all of these Primetime at the Parks, there's so much talk about sex on these shows. It's crazy to me.
Or the kid who works there saying that he knocked up the principal's daughter. I actually thought that the delivery of that joke was pretty funny, but...
Yeah, there's just so much sex talk on sitcoms. It kind of blows my mind. Looking back.
Especially when you're surrounded by hidden Mickeys. It felt very out of place. But I will say the joke you're talking about with the little kid, that's something that will go over most young people's minds because he doesn't actually say it. He just kind of says, oh, cover it with a book or whatever. But yeah,
totally.
It was awkward.
And listen, I think that's what they rely on, is that kids won't get it. I'm just really surprised going back and watching older sitcoms at just how much that discussion is on those shows. It's crazy to me. But the other thing that really kind of bothered me in this is you mentioned the kid won the award at school, and he mentions he got a bumper sticker. He's bringing a bumper sticker to his dad that says, proud parent of the most improved special ed student. And like, there's this whole exchange between George and the wife where like they didn't want to put these stickers on their cars because the kid's a special ed student. And I was like, what? This is not okay.
Yeah, definitely different.
Different time, man. It's so crazy. And it was 17 years ago. So I guess it's been a while, but oh my gosh, times have changed. Talk about the bee story for a second that you were talking about.
So the guy that I talked about, he's somebody's son, it sounded like, that works for the company, and he works at this thing, but he's not really doing anything. He's kind of a bad boy. When George's son comes in with his wife, the daughter is also there, and the daughter meets this kid. They say a couple of words to each other. And when they go to Disneyland, this kid shows up. He has her phone number, gives her a necklace, reaches into her shirt, and then kisses her. And then she's kind of smitten after that. But it was just very strange and weird.
He definitely puts his hand down her shirt when he's like dealing with that, that necklace. And I was just like, what is happening here? It's funny though. He calls her cell phone. You know who doesn't have her cell phone number? Her dad. Because at first they get to Disneyland and it's George and his mom, and they're looking for the rest of the family that went without them. And the first thing in my mind was, oh my gosh, times are so different. This is a time when people are at Disneyland without cell phones, which of course I remember. But then later in the show, like you said, the daughter has a cell phone. So I was like, okay, that's stupid. Are you telling me that the dad doesn't, or the dad doesn't know her phone number? That's dumb.
Yeah.
On Main Street, of course they enter the park through Main Street. Something I don't typically see when I see a show shot in the parks was a scrim surrounding one of the buildings.
That's the first thing in my notes. It says, first shot in Disney has a scrim. I'm like, you really couldn't reframe that? Like, just turn them to the side a little bit?
Yeah, I was very surprised by this because usually, of course, when they're shooting these things, they want the parks to look the best that they can. And sometimes that means they enhance things. But in this case, they had a scrim around a building that they were doing construction on, and they didn't seem to care about that at all, which I found
as long as they mention the all-new Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, we're all good.
That's the next thing in my notes. Now, the big question of, does the episode feel like a commercial? This one definitely more so than According to Jim, because there's literally a line that George Lopez says where he goes, yeah, then we'll go to Disney's California Adventure to see if they're on that new Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. It's like, yeah, not so subtle. A little later in the show, we do see some of the characters on the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. And the thing that always cracks me up about this is there's that one shot of the camera dropping down the elevator shaft that is like used for everything and has been used since day one for commercials for Tower of Terror. And you've seen it on so many specials and TV shows and stuff. And even the picture quality was just like grainier than the rest of the show.
Yeah.
It's just this thing that's, listen, I'm sure it's not an easy shot to get. So they're like, okay, we're doing it once and we'll use it for everything.
And even on that, when they're getting, it's like, now I know this is the new Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, but don't be scared. Like, he actually says new in the thing again, which was just hilarious.
I also love that they call it the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror because, most people walking around a park, they're like, we're going to the Tower of Terror. This is the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Do not mistake it.
The other thing that was kind of weird going back to the Main Street scene was that these people walk up and just kind of stop in front of George, and you realize that it's because she gives the mom the chance to make this joke saying, oh, he's not one of the characters. His head just looks like that. But the punchline didn't make any sense because why are they just stopping there? Like, it was clearly just a setup.
There's a lot of jokes on the show about George's big head. And he does have a big head, but like, I don't know, like there's several times in the episode they commented on how large his head was. And I was like, it's a weird thing. It must have been an ongoing thing on the show. I will say one of the things that is not so politically correct, I'm sure, but made me laugh is they were talking about, the drive to Disneyland and the mom didn't want to be there and she wasn't happy to be there. And there was a comment about, she'd rather be at the casinos that they drive by on the 5 heading to Disneyland, which do exist. That is a real life thing. And the comment that is made is, I think George says it. No. The mom says, it's just like Frontierland, except this time the Indians win.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that happened. This episode did give us the classic Splash Mountain shot.
Of course.
It feels like if you had a sitcom in a Disney park after Splash Mountain was built, you had to get this shot. It was just like required or something. All shows do it. And this one certainly did as well. One of the things that we see here is getting Mickey ears is a big deal. Of course, this is George's first time at Disneyland, and he ends up getting some Mickey ears. His mom gets him some and leaves them, hidden for him at home. And that is a thing that I feel like is kind of a rite of passage, just getting your Mickey ears at Disneyland. No matter how old you are, if it's your first time, like you got to get a set of Mickey ears. I'm sure some people don't, but it just feels like a thing.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something that they joked about on the middle too. Just, where I can get those ears? And
yeah, Brick, of course. Yeah. Brick was crazy about the ears. And I don't have much else to say about the George Lopez episode. Do you?
I will say I clocked it because this episode only spends about 7 minutes in the park. The rest of it is, the before and after of a 22-minute episode. This one I thought actually was pretty funny. There was some definitely laugh out loud moments for me. One of my favorites was they were on the teacups, which was another funny thing because there was a bunch of people watching these teacups. And you could see crowd control cast members in the background directing real guests around. But anyway, George is like, oh, I was looking all over for you. That's why I took the teacup so I could spin around and look all the different places. So I thought that was funny. I really liked the mother. I think she's funny. So I'd say that definitely not a good episode. And the storyline with the daughter was creepy, but I thought this was enjoyable. I actually watched it twice. I ended up showing it to my wife because I thought it was funny and over the top with the hidden Mickeys. Like that was part of the ridiculousness. But I laughed and I didn't hate it.
I did read somewhere that they actually don't air this one on reruns very often because of the contest that was part of it, which I think is weird. Like, couldn't they just say, hey, this contest is outdated? Like, this doesn't matter.
I've seen ones like that because remember Drew Carey used to do like April Fool's Day ones, and there was a contest tied to those sometimes. And yeah, when you see them like contest has ended, it shows on the screen. So I also like when George is taking a nap and he's singing Yo-Ho in his sleep and he wakes up, it's like, the dog has the keys. I don't know why that was funny, but it was.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. It sounds like I can't believe you watched it twice. That's really surprising. There is a moment. Did you notice? Oh gosh, somebody was I think the wife was taking a picture of George. Somebody was taking a picture of something, and the lens cap is 100% on the camera. And it was
That's funny.
Really? Who didn't catch that? Nobody caught that? You know how many people are standing around on these sets and nobody was like, lens cap is on?
You could also tell that this was the early 2000s because the boys just had the largest shorts in the world.
Is that an early 2000s thing? Big cargo
90s,
shorts?
early 2000s. I definitely, yeah, if your shorts went to your knee or above, like, that was the end of the world. You needed to have them practically be pants.
Short shorts are coming back, aren't they?
Well, now, but I mean, this was 20 years ago.
I know. So long ago. Cool. So this one, unrealistic. I didn't see anything too crazy unrealistic in the world of Disney anyway, other than stickers, Mickey stickers on everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, that part of it excluded. No, I thought it was very believable. Like, they live in Southern California. Yeah, it's expensive to just go, especially when the mom's threatening to leave, like, right away. But other than that, like, yeah, easy to drive down there, easy to hop between the two things to go ride the new Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. And otherwise, I think it all fits. I also appreciated that they took that underutilized back path by Splash Mountain. I was like, oh, that's perfect for filming because not many people go back that way. The one that connects to like Harbor Galley, or did. I don't know if it still does.
I believe it's still there, yeah. And the one thing that I will say is they did, of course, they went over to Disney's California Adventure, he called it, of course, and for the new Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, but they didn't really show any park hopping. This was one of those instances where it's kind of like, if you didn't know any better, you'd think the Tower of Terror were in the same park.
But he did point out that they were going over to Disney's California Adventure to ride the new Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. So I give them a pass on not making it seem like it was the same park.
Yeah, and they, of course, so you know, this one was a bit more commercial than Jim.
For sure. I mean, yes. If the fact that there's 150-something hidden Mickeys, easy to say it's more commercially.
I wonder what the number actually was. I wonder how many there were and like who won this contest.
I'm sure the answer is on Google somewhere.
Well, at least when you watched, like they told you at the beginning, I had to Google it because I was like, okay, my immediate thought was there has to be a contest because it made no sense otherwise. I mean, this was more obvious than the Buzz Lightyear binder, and according to Jim, so it was a bit extreme. But yeah. So those are two more sitcoms. PrimeTime at the Parks. Oh my gosh, I am getting toward the end of the list of sitcoms to cover, and I don't know of any new ones in the future as of now. Have you heard of any? I think the latest one was the Goldbergs, which I did already.
Yeah, I saw something that there was a filming at Alani, actually, with the girl from Andy Mack for a Disney Plus show. I don't know if Alani will actually be a part of the story or if that's... I just saw a headline about it, so I'm not even sure this is 100% accurate, but I just saw it today. So maybe there'll be something on Disney Plus with Alani.
Alrighty. Well, they haven't done Aulani yet for a show, so that would make sense. Fuller House should have gone to Aulani. That's what should have happened. Anyway, guys, I think that means it's time for some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Kyle, do you want to hit me with the trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I would like to go first, if that's all right.
Please do, sir.
And I'm going to try to make this one a little bit harder because I feel you're going to get it. So I'm going to exclude a couple of pieces of information to try to make it a little bit more difficult. So
in the blank, where the blank blanked.
No, so each of the Disney ships have godmothers. Do you know who was the godmother for the most recent ship, excluding the ones that haven't actually officially debuted yet?
Okay, are these real people or are these characters?
Both. This one's a real person, I'll tell you that.
Okay, so you're saying for the Wish or?
The most recent, no, not the Wish, before the Wish. The most
the
fantasy.
Fantasy.
Yes.
Right. So it's the Fantasy. Oh, I feel like I remember seeing video of this. This is the person who would release the bottle to smash into the ship, right?
Yeah,
the christening of the ship.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, it's not Julie Andrews, is it?
No.
Yeah.
Do you want a hint?
Give me a little hint.
Their name, the name of the ship ties into this person's career in some way.
So the Fantasy ties into this person's career. I mean, the first person I thought of was Whitney Houston because I just thought of the fairy godmother from Cinderella, but she did. Fantasy. Then I thought when you were saying it ties into the name, I was like, is it Fantasia from old school American Idol? But that ain't it. Fantasy.
It's funny you mentioned American Idol.
Kelly Clarkson?
No, but
Dreamgirls.
No, that was the one before. I was going to say the ship before that was Jennifer Hudson. This one was not Jennifer Hudson.
And I am telling you.
Well, if you're going to sing, then I'm going to sing and tell you the answer. Are you ready?
Wait a second. So
right.
I don't even know American Idol that well. Yeah, sing a song.
Sweet,
give me a hint.
Sweet fantasy, baby.
No idea.
Mariah Carey.
What does that have to do with American Idol?
She was on American Idol.
Is she a judge?
She was a judge. Remember the whole beef with her and Nicki Minaj?
Nope, because I pay no attention to American Idol.
Well, you should read more TMZ.
Absolutely not. Okay, so Mariah. So let me ask you this: what is the responsibility of a ship's fairy godmother? And if you are the ship's fairy godmother, can you get on for free whenever you want? Because if so, I'm getting in a dress and I'm going to be a ship's fairy godmother.
Well, Tinkerbell was one of them, so I'm thinking she can get on for whenever. But I don't know. I don't know how they chose Mariah Carey exactly. Maybe that was during her brief run on American Idol. I don't know I think she was just there for the promotion and did the christening and sang on New Year's Eve, and we all know how that went.
You want to know something, though, when it comes to Mariah Carey, one of the best performances I've ever seen from her, not that I follow her all that much, but that her performance in front of It's a Small World at Disneyland for the Christmas special, where she sings All I Want for Christmas Is You, is really good. Like, it's really, really, really good. Just putting that out there.
No, Mariah Carey's amazing. It's just everyone just remembers that one New Year's Eve thing was just such a debacle.
I always think of her meltdown on TRL, to be honest. That's the thing I think of.
I don't know that one. I know TRL for sure, but...
Oh, she showed up with like an ice cream cart, and she was just like... She was mentally unstable. There was something wrong, and it was very clear that there was something wrong, and Carson Daly could tell something was wrong, and she ended up in rehab like the next day. It was actually really sad, but that's sadly what I think of when I think of Mariah Carey. But now I'll think of her christening the Disney Fantasy.
There you go. I'm glad you didn't get it, quite honestly, because I thought that one was going to be too easy.
No. No, the good question. I got a question for you, because on the episode of According to Jim, of course, I said it ends with the Disney magic foghorn blasting the melody of When You Wish Upon a Star. Can you tell me which 6 songs the Disney Dream Ship has the ability to play?
No. Let me try to get some. So When You Wish Upon a Star makes a lot of sense.
So you think that's one of them?
Oh, it's not one of them?
Well, that was the magic on According to Jim.
Oh.
So I'm saying on the fantasy.
All right.
I'm sorry, on the dream, rather. Can you tell me what songs on the dream?
Okay, I'm still going to think that that's one of them. Maybe
You are right.
Under the Sea?
Under the Sea is not, although that would make sense, wouldn't it?
That'd be a little upsetting to think about being under the sea when you're on a ship.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the exact exchange that went down in a meeting where somebody goes, yeah, of course, that's fitting. And they're like, maybe not.
Okay, let me try to think of other... I'm literally stroking my chin for the people that can't see.
He is. I can tell you.
I'm trying to think of like what short little bursts would make sense and be very noticeable.
Well, I'll
Turkey in a Straw? Is that one of them?
Absolutely no. It is not.
That would be cool.
What movie is When You Wish Upon a Star from?
It's from Pinocchio. So Hi Diddly Dee.
Hi Diddly Dee. Yep, that's another one. So that's 2 of them. You get 2. There's one that is very classic Disney. I think almost every fireworks show. Just as classic as When You Wish Upon a Star.
Okay. Is something from Snow White?
Nope, it's from Cinderella.
Okay, so A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes?
Yep. Bum, 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 bum,
that makes sense.
That was my recreation of the foghorn for you.
Are they all classics, or are there more modern ones?
So there's one modern, I mean, 90s, if you call that modern, which it's not. But yes, there's something from the 90s.
Be Our Guest?
Be Our Guest is one of them. And then the final 2 that you didn't get are both from theme parks.
Okay, so It's a Small World?
Very good. It's
and
a Small
Yo-Ho?
World. OMG, I'm impressed. Yes, Yo Ho, Yo Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me from Pirates of the Caribbean. So once again, that's When You Wish Upon a Star, Be Our Guest, Hi Diddly Dee, It's a Small World, Yo Ho, Yo Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, and A Dream as A Wish Your Heart Makes. Or if you say it the way that I wrote it here in my notes, it's A Dream as A Wish Your Hear Makes.
Oh.
But I think the first one was correct. So yeah, those are the 6 songs that the foghorn on the Disney Dream ship can play, which I think is pretty darn cool.
That is pretty cool. And I now want to look up if it's the same for all of them.
Which, no, so the thing that I found interesting about this is I think the others have one tune, or at least the ones that came before this ship all had like one tune. And I honestly like the idea of each of them having one song that is just theirs and theirs alone. So as cool as it is that the ship can play 6 songs, I kind of like the uniqueness of one.
Well, the next one's going to have like a whole jukebox, I'm sure.
Okay, if that'd be awesome. Oh my gosh, if you could just throw in $1 and get to choose, that thing would be going all day long. It'd be amazing. If you could pick any song to be played through a Disney cruise ship foghorn, what would you pick? And I'm not saying this has to be something that like makes sense for everybody to enjoy it. I mean just for you.
Right.
What would I pick? Oh, I know what I would pick.
I think Turkey in the Straw would be pretty cool, actually. I think that'd be a nice touch.
Okay, I want to hear your foghorn Turkey in the Straw. That was amazing on so many levels. I love that. Mine would be, for some reason, the first thing that popped to mind was Eye to Eye. I think that would, how would it go? Wah, 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 wah. Boom.
Pretty good.
If anybody is still listening, I will be shocked. We have lost our minds at this point. We have Mariah Carey here. And I think with that, we're going to sign off. And unless there's anything else you want to add, Kyle.
I don't think so.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on for an edition of Primetime at the Parks.
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed today's conversation. If you did, you may enjoy past Primetime at the Parks conversations where we've discussed shows like The Middle, Boy Meets World, Full House, Family Matters, The Goldbergs, Modern Family, and many more. You can find links to those episodes in the show notes in this episode's description. And folks, if you haven't listened yet, you'll definitely want to tune into a recent episode where I interviewed Imagineer Kevin Rafferty about the attractions he developed but didn't quite make it into the parks. And of course, tune in next week for discussion about the latest Disney news. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. You can find any links mentioned in this episode by checking out the show notes at DisneyCoastToCoast.com, or you can find a link to the show notes in this episode's description. Help ensure more free episodes of the podcast and gain rewards by joining the DCTC community at patreon.com/DisneyCTC. And don't forget to leave a voicemail at 818-860-2569 to share your thoughts on today's conversation and the chance to be heard on a future episode. Once again, that's 818-860-2569, or find the number in this episode's description, along with a link for some free gifts from me to you. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at DePodcastNetwork.com. That's DEPodcastNetwork.com.